I know that you're mine. You say that I'm sweet, but your lips just cannot be beat. I simply don't know why.
Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Toronto-based jazz singer Kalya Ramu. She opened up about her debut CD called Living in a Dream, an album featuring original compositions and a selection of songs written from the 1920s to the 40s, capturing the essence of that golden age of swing and transporting everybody to the modern day now. This 25-year-old artist is thrilled to add her voice to a list of singers who have interpreted this incredible music with original compositions that combine a classic Tin Pan Alley writing style with contemporary lyrical content, helping to modernize the music while still preserving its core stylistic elements. So please get to know her and dig this interview, my friends.
All right. Well, thanks again for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz today. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and talk about your new CD, Living in a Dream. It's going to be officially released on May 10th. Talk to me about this debut album. What was the artistic vision for this?
Since I was young and started singing at the age of 12, I've always been really interested in old jazz music, like from the 20s, 30s, 40s. And I fell in love with it. And so I think I wanted to bring that back to modern ears, because it's a little bit of a forgotten art right now, forgotten sound, and I'd love to revive it. So that's kind of what I did with this album. It's a pretty 1940s theme with some original songs that are very inspired by music from that era. And I think it's going to bring it back into modern times a little bit.
Why do you think that is with jazz? It seems like, like even back in the 90s when there was, kind of this swing revival with Squirrel Nut Zippers and things. Why do you think we need to resuscitate jazz? What do you think that's all about?
Well, personally, since I was young, I always felt a big, deep connection with old music. I'm not sure exactly why, but I think that bringing back music from old times is a way of keeping the history alive and kind of connecting us with the history, right? And bringing it back. It's a way to go back in time almost and experience through music what our ancestors felt or people from that time. And I don't know, I think there's a big revival right now, especially in film and TV. A lot of old jazz is being brought back into soundtracks and stuff. So I think we've developed an interest for the nostalgic sound.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing. So were you born and raised in Toronto?
I was, yes, right in North York, just north of the heart. Grew up here, lived here all my life so far. We'll see where I go.
So how did you get into music? How did you get into singing, and kind of what was your childhood like?
I started performing live with a big band, a community big band in North York here, when I was about 12 years old. I think I just got into music through my parents. They're not musicians, but they are huge music enthusiasts. They love jazz and big band music and, big fan of the Beatles. So we always had music playing in the background here at home, and I guess because of that, I started singing and realized, hey, I can do this. So I started singing with the big band, found them, and that led me to singing with the Toronto Ulster Big Band, another youth orchestra in Toronto. Really, that inspired me to go to Humber College Music School. That's just kind of how it brought me to performing. I realized that's something I want to do for the rest of my life.
Wonderful. So what kind of jazz early on, singers or musicians, really got you inspired to want to get into it more?
The biggest one, I will say, is Ella Fitzgerald as an obvious inspiration. Just the way she sings brings life to every lyric, and that really got to me. Ella Fitzgerald. Another big one is Sarah Vaughan, Billie Holiday, everyone from that kind of 40s era. I could keep going, names like Peggy Lee, Doris Day, Dinah Washington. but it would go on for another hour, so I'll stop there.
What about one of the very first jazz shows you saw that really inspired you?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. I don't know. I think we went to see a lot of smaller acts when I was young that I don't know if I remember all of them. I actually haven't seen many big jazz acts in Toronto. Just seen a lot of, because I really listen to the older stuff, I got kind of almost stuck in that world of films and listening to old recordings, and I'd never got drawn out to seeing live music that comes to Toronto. More so I see friends and other people I know in the music scene right now, but I don't know if I can remember that first. We've been to many shows of maybe lesser known artists. I am excited about, if I can mention, I'm going to see finally one of my most a more modern singer called Cecile McLaurin-Salvant, and she's making it bigger now. She's signed to Mac Records, and I'm going to see her this June, I believe. And so I'm very excited about that. I haven't seen many big artists in Toronto here, so that'll probably be my first bigger show.
Right on. So why is the stage such a home for you? Why do you feel at home singing on a stage?
I think one of the biggest things for me, since I began performing with big bands, a lot of the crowd is older folks, people that grew up with the music of the swing era, and I saw how much singing that music lit them up and reminded them of their old times, the old music. And I think just connecting with an audience and making them feel something is something that really gets me excited, and that is the main reason why I love performing so much.
So let me add on top of that and ask, why do you love jazz?
Okay, that's a good question. I don't know exactly if it heats me up. It wakes me up, and every time I hear it, it makes me emotional. And like I'm saying, I think that bringing emotion through music is one of the most important things for me. So it's just something that makes me feel. It makes me move, and it makes me happy. So I suppose that's what it is. It feels almost as if I had a past life in the 20s or 30s where I really connect that way. It makes me feel nostalgic for some unknown reason.
So with that answer in mind, my question to you is this. This is your debut album, and I want to know, what do you want the listener to get from this experience of getting your album? How do you want them to feel after they're done?
I think bringing some of that nostalgic, I'm not sure how many other people have that feeling of when they listen to old music, even though they're a younger generation that didn't quite live through that era. I want to evoke some nostalgia in people and make people feel the way I do when I connect with this music, just lighting up their emotions and getting their toes tapping and making people want to dance. I think that is a big goal for me with this album.
Wonderful. So my final question to you is this. Everyone has a version or an interpretation of who they think you are, your family, your friends, your fans, but you know who you are best. So tell me, who do you think you are?
You're killing it with these hard questions. Who am I? I think I am a singer-songwriter. I want to revive a sound that brings me happiness. And, I'm a performer, and I want to connect with audiences with this beautiful music that I don't want to let die. I want it to revive and stay alive throughout the generations.
Wonderful. That's a great way to wrap everything up. Hey, thank you again for taking some time out for Neon Jazz, and good luck with this debut album.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Toronto, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Miss Ramu for her time, honesty, and her stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Dim the stars, just wrap me in your charm.
Neon Jazz.